A quick temporary video explaining the basics and the technology and where we are this week for Dusoma, AI for Humanity. Sometimes when I get to a point where I want to explain something simply to a lot of people, I just make a video like this and it just clarifies everything and just level sets what I'm thinking about and where we're at as an organization. Introduction. So, what are we looking to build? What are we talking about when we're talking about all this humanitarian work? We're talking about LGBT, the Gorom Pride 10, a group at Gorom Camp in South Sudan, getting universal basic income. But then I keep saying, we're a tech company. We're the first humanitarian tech company. So, what does this mean? What are we looking to build? And what are we responding to when we talk about AI claims versus reality, ChatGPT and the Microsoft CEO? And prosperity versus poverty. So, in simplest terms, when big tech says that AI is for the benefit of humanity, they seem to be really thinking about. Countries being wealthy, more gross domestic product. But when you say, well, what about the artists that you've stolen from? Or, they'll say, oh, well, things might get a little worse before they get better. But their focus is clearly not on the poorest billion people in the world. Sam Altman frustratingly said, I don't know how AI can help solve world hunger when his company just raised $40 billion last quarter. There's a lot that Sam Altman and OpenAI could do to combat world hunger. So there's that blindness that we're responding to. And similarly, the Microsoft CEO wrote a book called The Coming Wave that mentions Africa once, and I think uses the words poor and poverty maybe once or twice, but it's absolutely an afterthought. And when he's thinking about prosperity, he's thinking about prosperity for the West, basically, and Americans. Okay, defining AI for humanity. So, what are we doing differently? Our focus is on the poorest billion people on the planet. As the planet is about 8 billion people, it's about 1 out of 8. 1 out of 8 people on the planet would be considered very, very poor. Of those lowest 10%, you start seeing people who who have mud floors. As we know, mud floors contribute to disease. When there's flooding and there's rain, the worms come up, people get infected with these terrible diseases. So, one of the ways we define poor people is people on mud floors. Refugees are very, very poor. They're stateless, which is an even new level of poverty. Beyond being penniless, you're stateless, you're hungry, you're experiencing violence, and you're probably even gay. We focus a lot on LGBT people because they are really discriminated against to such a degree that they are literally the low person on the totem pole. They get bullied by neighbors. The violence is constant. And so we think of those folks as the poorest of the poor people on earth. And we are honored to have these people really working with us as subject matter experts and as a focus group. Instead of just being an arrogant American who thinks I know the solutions and working with a team that thinks we know solutions, we're actually working with the people that we want to help who are in the most difficult of situations and who are in situations where there aren't quite clear answers. And what we'll talk about is getting those folks using ChatGPT to test what does ChatGPT do for you. So again, we address hunger, violence, poverty, and I like to call it full stack woke, which is a technical term, full stack, but that we are working with people who are the most marginalized. One thing we said is that we were once talking about somebody who's a poor person, a refugee, somebody in Africa who is black, who is gay, who is a trans man, and for whom, if they were discovered to be menstruating, could be killed. And so we were talking about getting menstrual pads anonymously to someone like that. And we came up with the phrase full stack woke because that seems about as far progressive and DEI as we could possibly go. The AI would serve them. So the idea is you could say, I'm a trans man in Afghanistan. I need menstrual pads. Nobody can know. I was identified female at birth. What do I do? You know, and then it would say, okay, well, so we're in Afghanistan. Here's a fund. Let's connect you to that fund. And they have a deal with a store that will ship to a store near you. We're going to label it bananas or something like that. You know, we'd figure this out. But what we're doing and what we're paying people for now is to figure things out because right now the AI is wrong. It doesn't know the answers to these things and it gives us a lot of nonsense that does not work. It gives us the name of organizations that don't write us back. Okay, alleviating hunger, promoting transparency and anti corruption. So, the big high level things that we're talking about for Dusoma AI for Humanity is that if we could ever get the aid coming again and say, we can say, look, give us $10 million dollars, and we promise the following. We will use AI to make sure that when it comes from the West, whatever the funder is, that it gets to the first destination on the continent with the minimal amount removed for fees. Then we make sure that it gets to the region without too much of the money disappearing. So we're tracking it, and then all the way through are people on the ground who have smartphones and WhatsApp and internet and can ensure us that it got through. So when we focus on Gorom Camp, if the aid doesn't get there, we have people who will know. And we really have grown to feel that that is the only way to know. If you were to look this up on ChatGPT today, it would make it sound like the system is working beautifully and people have what they need, and they obviously don't. Okay, so monitoring aid distribution, ensuring it reaches intended recipients, and transparency from source to endpoint, I just discussed. Um, so again, you would go to the AI, you would say, I am broke, I am hungry, and it would ask you some questions and go beyond the typical assumptions that you're American and that food is in your refrigerator, which it basically says now. You say, I'm hungry, and it says, well, what do you have in your fridge? Do you want to go to a restaurant? What's your budget? You know, and uh, it doesn't dawn on it that you might be in a place where there is not a lot of food anywhere. Fundraising to support practical implementation. We've got our experts in Gorom Camp. I spelled that wrong. Sorry, compulsive. Yeah. Okay, real world limitations in current AI responses. Okay, reversing the aid request model. So AI for immediate assistance, a scenario for our Dusoma, AI for humanity, the poorest billion people, it would pay for your phone, even a laptop in a perfect world, and pay for your wireless. And when you say things like, I am broke, I am hungry, it has follow-up questions and actually helps you and beyond the typical assumptions. Okay, so we're fundraising to support our implementation. We've got our experts in Gorham Camp testing this. Uh, Real world limitations in current AI responses. If you ask it today, I need help, I'm in South Sudan, it'll give you a list of organizations that we have already been writing to, and we can assure you do not write back. And that includes you. Peace wins South Sudan. You are supposed to be helping people in South Sudan, and you don't write us back, and nobody on the ground seems to see you. So we're going to be writing to them again and saying what's going on. Okay, so we're reversing the aid request model. So currently they have top down strategies where the organization figures out who they want to support. And ours would be that you could go and ask them and say you're an individual in need. The reason they don't do this is because there would be quite a lot of overload. and they would get hit with 100,000 emails. So we understand that, but we believe with AI we could say something like, "Hey, Oxfam, we got 20,000 people asking you for help who say they need help like you provide. Do you want some dashboards to understand who these people are? Do you want some analytics to figure out where the requests are coming from? How can we do to help and connect with people and aid? And when you don't serve people, what can organizations do to help us point us to someone who can? Because we're really kind of getting bounced around right now, and people are saying, well, we can't help and we can't help. And it's like, well, who can and what are we supposed to do? So again, we're figuring everything out in the old fashioned way so we can train the AI, because that's all AI ever does. It just knows what humans do already. It doesn't innovate, it doesn't come up with new things. So if we can't figure out world hunger, then the AI can't figure out world hunger. It can't figure out something that humans haven't figured out. So again, utilizing the poorest people as experts. And then to make our work go faster, how can we use AI for letter writing? How do we generate 10 letters in an hour instead of spending 20 minutes on each one? And we're addressing lack of responses from aid organizations. And I think I talk about this in the next slide, but foundations that are beholden to donate 5%. We're going to be writing to as many as we can, knowing that there's 1.5 million of them. Okay, AI and grant management. This was a big hit at the United Nations conference. I said boldly that we are all wasting our time filling out grant applications, and people nodded and smiled and came up to me afterwards and said, yes, how do we not have to read and write grants anymore? And it's really as simple as creating a grant application free system. So the no grant writing kowtow, which is kowtowing, is when you walk 3 steps, hit your head on the ground, walk 3 more steps, hit your head on the ground, and it's a way of showing your humility, but it's killing us with grant writing and it's giving us a big headache. So how do we do this? And again, we're stripping down the 1.5 million, sorry, I want to make sure I don't say it, but stripping down the 1.5 million foundations, looking at what we call good people with good projects, and just connecting them and saying, I did a long talk about how organizations will do things where they fund equipment but not paying people. So then sometimes organizations get half the money they need, but they don't get the money that they need to pay themselves. And so then they end up wasting the money on the equipment because they didn't get the other half. Not to mention all the really good projects that were abandoned because they just simply couldn't get additional funding, and they also didn't have the resources of grant writers. As we all know, you have to be a pretty moneyed organization to be writing grants. So when you see people who do get grants, it's organizations that had the resources to apply for them, and that's not always helping the organizations that are really just getting by and using every minute to do good work. So we pay our content creators directly. We documenting violence, poor conditions, and then samples of low resource language. That gets a little bit into the translation app work we're doing, but the point is that it's all data, even if it's a language sample or somebody reporting violence or a picture of a ripped tent. And then there's another video specifically about ethical data standards. That's why we're going to be working with Wikipedia. They have excellent data standards as well, and it's very well aligned. We have a thing called the Collective Federated Data Ownership Model, CFDOM. It's ethical practices and immediate payment, anonymously, just giving people money right away. Then, if they want to stay in touch, We might be able to keep their phone going, revenue sharing royalty system. So if we ever do sell the data, like say we get hours of language samples and we work out a deal with Google and everybody gives their consent, everybody signs off on it, and we get money, then we have a royalty system that pays our people. And it could be a continued financial benefit to data providers. Again, what I keep saying is that the problem with commercial AI is that the goal is not to help humanity, their goal is to make profit. And so they're never going to feel like it makes sense to pay contributors because that lowers their profit. Our whole goal is to use data as a means to get money to poor people, as a means to provide life changing compensation. Okay, criticism. The thing that we say about their claims of helping humanity. Again, OpenAI saying that they've become a not-for-profit again is really quite misleading. The investors can make unlimited money now, whereas when they were a public benefit corporation, they couldn't. So if the investors can make unlimited money, of course they're going to be wanting to make a for-profit system. They're going to be pushing for the $200 a month chat GPT, and the greed will continue. The thing that I say often is how does laying off 100 million people benefit humanity? It doesn't. How does AI help refugees? It doesn't. And how does it help the world's poorest people who don't have phones? It doesn't. So there's a misalignment between AI claims and realities. So for me, I'm doing a class called Chat GPT and the Human Resistance. It comes from my personal experience and use using it personally and in a corporate environment. I've got a special video about the 70 ways that I use Chat GPT, not just prompts I've done, but actual systems that I've created with it. And so it's great with project planning, time saving. I've worked with it in a large enterprise, thinking about how a 50,000 person company could use it better. And interestingly, I got to the point where working at a 50,000 person company, I came up with a way for AI to lay off 10% of our people, and got to the point and I'm like, well, why? Is that really what I want to do with my life? I want to use AI to lay people off when we don't have universal basic income. And so I stopped that work. Just because you invent something doesn't mean you should actually make it all the way if it really doesn't benefit humanity. Okay, so what does this have to do with the spy phone? The Magic Rainbow Butterfly smartphone is our data acquisition system. We like to say it's magic because we pay people and money seems to come from the sky. It's rainbow because it's made by gay people, queer people, for other gay and queer people. It's a butterfly because it can help you escape. And it's a spy phone for reasons I will explain. It's a spy phone because once we get this thing built, it'll get to the point where if the phone gets stolen, because they're getting stolen all the time, it could be activated remotely and it would start spying on the person, and it would, next slide, it would kind of say, no harm, no foul, but you took our phone and we kind of want it back, or we'll work with you. Okay, but what it would also do is eventually it would be an app that gives things that refugees and impoverished people need: emergency supplies like water, food, shelter, theft tracking, recovery, and activation after it's stolen. Okay. AI for Sustainable Development Goals, aligning with the UN's 17 goals, poverty reduction, equal rights, and then AI for informed voting and political accountability. So when we talked about foundations letting us know their data so we can connect with them, same thing with politicians. When you say "listen!" exclamation point in our AI, you can talk to a politician and it'll send it to a kind of conceptual inbox. Also, if you currently try to look up a politician's stance on things, it's not a complete record. And so we would be writing to lots of politicians and asking them to be very, very clear, to fill out templates and to help voters make good decisions. Also, eventually, one goal we have is that when policy is put through, so you're looking at like a big bill in the United States, you could type in, how will this impact me? And then it will say, well, what state are you in? How old are you? What kind of medical insurance do you have? And then it would tell you how it would impact you. Would it cost you more? Would it cost you less? And so you could really look at these policies and things your government is doing and understand its impact on you. Okay, tracking political candidates' responsiveness, uh, also training. We'll talk about fine tuning, but on economic thought leaders. He it left out Traore, the uh, president of Burkina Faso, but Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Robert Reich, and then things like learning from China's economic recovery, taking a deep dive in what China did between 1950 and 1970 that went from tens of millions of people starving to becoming an economic superpower, and understanding microeconomics and macroeconomics. Okay. AI and makerspaces, that would be another thing when we do programs that help people make money or innovate. Makerspaces are really powerful, putting all their information together, globally collaborating, again, looking at grants for makerspaces. A lot of focus on 3D printing at makerspaces and getting to the point where we could look at 3D printing homes. There have been about 500 3D printed homes so far. I think there's the potential of a place like Sudan where we could make a 3D printer using some cement things along with sand and clay. And once we had one prototype working, for probably just a few dollars, could print a small little house. I've got a little picture of it with shelves built in and a little table built in, and it could be really neat. If nothing else, it's a great upskilling. People would learn digital skills, they'd learn about 3D printing, they'd learn about advanced manufacturing, and it'd be one of our career tracks. Also, these 3D printed houses could have standardized infrastructure, so plumbing and electricity would be plug and play, and again, we would have education related to that. Okay, AI and education, stripping down paywalls and, these educational systems that want lots of money. I've been for years wanting Harvard Medical School, just hack it, download it, make it available, so people could start for free using only a smartphone, start studying anatomy, start studying, emergency care, help people in some of the poorest places in the world get some free medical supplies. Again, connecting people with funding, learning some basic bandaging, broken bones, basic, treatment for areas where there literally is only a witch doctor. I used to always talk about having a program where we actually gave medical education to witch doctors, but that's a little dream. From no skills to expert level training. Another thing I've always been thinking about is a class about asphalt, road building, and again, how do we make jobs? When the obvious jobs available is that you can't even get to a lot of these areas because they don't have good roads. So we would have education, again, based on AI and expertise and stuff like that, that again says, when you say, why am I hungry? We would, have some answers or help people get some answers. And most importantly, pay people to get those answers and do that research. So we would have people in Bahama camp say, okay, well, one problem is that there's no real roads that get here. And if we got $1 million grant, who would give us $1 million grant? How could it employ local people? How would it pay for our equipment and training? You don't want a bulldozer with, again, no training for how to do the bulldozer. You don't want tractors when you don't have any training on how to repair a tractor, or you don't have money to teach people how to repair a tractor, or you don't have money for a facility where tractors can be repaired. So, and again, projects that they just didn't work with the actual people on the ground, and they were solutions looking for problems, and they didn't follow up. Okay, slide 23, and there's 34 slides. So let me keep this moving along. AI for infrastructure and development. And we have built a bot analyzing UN documentation. We're looking at 700 documents. There's 14,000. Trying to understand the follow up. It's a lot of marketing writing. But again, we're really trying to not reinvent the wheel and okay, so more about that. Creative stuff. Things that AI does not do well is think outside the box. Love puppet theater. Maybe we could have people travel around as a performance group and get around some loopholes for refugees that way. Advertising based income generation. That's a thing. There's a company that claims that they'll pay you to watch ads. So that would be great if we could really get $5 a day for refugees for watching ads that apply to them. That could be incredible. Okay. And the ads would be about resources. Okay, why do we do LGBT? As we mentioned, they are really some of the poorest people on the earth. As this is AI for humanity, we would be together using AI to help understand and support people who are experiencing the global backlash against LGBT rights and body autonomy. I talked about full stack woke, and I am not kidding around. We want abortion rights. We'd like to end female genital mutilation. We'd like to get menstrual pads to people. Again, gay rights, the right for somebody identified male at birth to wear a dress without being hassled. And that is the side that we are on. And if people don't like that side, they can build their own AI. And I think it's called Grok. But anyway, improving AI accuracy for rights movements. Okay, AI fine tuning. The technicalities of that is that I started with a thing called Chat GPT Maker, and this is a document based AI customization. So it would read my top layer. So if I had something specifically about gender transition, like we use the book Gender Transition for Dummies, it would hit that book first before it hits mainstream vanilla ChatGPT, and that's that. Um, uh, and then, so what we have already and what's been built and what I'm going to be launching and asking everybody to test is there's going to be this AI for humanitarian Dusoma, and it's also called Marla, which is my Akashic record learning app. And it's going to say in big letters, this is the privacy equivalent of emailing Catherine. Catherine can see every single thing you're typing in, but it's by design. And so I can see what people are looking for. I can see when it helps, when it gives bad answers, and it writes messages to me and things like that. So it would be clear about the level of privacy and lack of privacy. And then I can see the responses and make sure that it's always working as well as it can. Again, a communication system. So you would say help, exclamation point, hello, which is a way of introducing yourself. And again, always that how can I get money? So direct matchmaking between supporters and those in need. Okay. And again, so for foundations, we would strip them down, ask them what they want to fund, see who's active, and then match them up automatically with good people and good projects. And then, especially focused on small projects that just, they just lost their funding, they didn't have the resources to do a lot of grant writing, but they were good people, they were successful, and finding some of those diamonds in the rough, so to speak. Okay, evaluating UN projects, dollar for dollar success metrics, and I've already done that one. And again, menstrual pads is the ultimate. We'd love to have AI for Humanity be an expert on it. It would tell you everybody who's tried it. It would update on every little project because it seems like there's been about 10 efforts to do it, and we still have it where only 10 or 15% of menstruating people in the global south are using disposable pads, and it remains a problem. And so we're going to try to actually take it to the next level. Everything from getting money for menstrual pads, free pads, to understanding the initiatives that are making them, and maybe even getting a small factory in your town, or a bunch of them shipped for free. Okay, so finishing up, what are our 6 month and 1 year goals? We've got the prototype that everybody's going to start testing. We're going to start seeing, the limitations of it, and keep working on humanitarian goals. And again, it's all data, everything that people are giving me. It's going to, again, it's a vehicle to give people money. And last, uh, so we did that one, watching targeted advertisements for $5 a day. So hopefully, when you say, I need money, we have a solution where you could make $5 within the next 24 hours using just your phone. And it would pay for your internet. So that is the conclusion. Thank you for listening. Bye bye.